There's a moment in every man's life when the noise around him turns into static, and the laughter aimed at him stops sounding like laughter at all. Mine came under a string of fairy lights, on a rooftop full of people who didn't know they were about to witness the death of something private. Jenna stood up with that grin she wore when she wanted attention, tapping her spoon against the glass, and said, "Guys, this one's for closure." Everyone laughed, raised their glasses, phones tilted in my direction. I thought it was another one of her exaggerated stories about our domestic comedy. I didn't realize I was the punchline. She looked right at me, steady as a performer, and announced, "Mark and I are done. 6 years, great run, right? But it's time for both of us to be free." The word free echoed like a dropped coin. Someone yelled, "Freedom toast!" and everyone clinked glasses. I watched her friends, their manic smiles lit by the blue glow of their phones. One shouted, "Make it official, girl!" as if I wasn't standing 3 feet away, as if I'd signed up to be part of their show. My heart didn't pound. It just went still. I looked around and realized every camera lens was pointed at me, waiting for the reaction, the outburst, the begging, the humiliation. By the time the city woke up, I was already gone. My phone sat face down in the passenger seat, screen black, set to airplane mode like a sealed confession. The first stop wasn't dramatic, just a dim, rented storage unit on the edge of town, filled with the quiet remains of 6 years that no longer belonged to me. Jenna woke up to what she thought was a hangover and mild fame. The rooftop clip had gone mildly viral overnight, thousands of views, laughing emojis, comments like, "Queen energy," and "That's how you do it." She scrolled through them with her morning coffee, smirking at every compliment that fed her ego. Her friends flooded her messages with digital applause. "You were savage," one wrote. "He just stood there like a statue. Iconic." Jenna replied with a laughing emoji and a "He'll live." Except he didn't reply to anything. Not a message, not a call, not even the passive-aggressive story she tagged him in with the caption, "Healing starts now, nail polished." His phone went straight to voicemail, then, hours later, to nothing at all. Jenna didn't sleep the night after her unanswered, "Anyone seen Mark?" post. Not because she missed him, she told herself that lie convincingly enough, but because the silence was starting to feel like a strategy. She sat on the edge of the mattress that used to be theirs, now stripped down to the frame. Her charger cable curled next to her like a dead vine. She rewatched the rooftop video on loop, the part where she lifted her glass, the part where everyone laughed, the part where he stood there, and then said it. "Freedom looks good on you." Not a man breaking down, not a man even reacting, just that line. One she'd mistaken for passive-aggressive politeness, but now it played like a lock clicking shut. At 9 a.m. sharp, she walked into his old office building with a fake smile and a made-up excuse about just needing to grab something he might have left behind. She figured some junior receptionist would tell her he was on vacation or leave of absence, some temporary situation that made sense. What she got instead was a quiet woman in a pantsuit with perfect posture saying, "He resigned. Back in June." Jenna blinked. "Resigned? As in quit?" The woman nodded. "Yes, he gave full notice, closed his projects, and left with an excellent recommendation. HR said he even cashed out his retirement benefits. Efficient guy. We don't see that much anymore. Cashed out. Retirement. Gone." Jenna left the building with her heart pushing up against her ribs. The summer. That was months ago. Before her birthday. The air smelled like grease, burnt coffee, and pine needles. No rooftop bars. No craft cocktails or influencer birthday candles. Just gravel under boots and engines that still ran because someone cared enough to fix them. Mark was gone, erased in every way that mattered. Here they called him Grayson. Just Grayson. No last name. No follow-up questions. And nobody asked him why he didn't have a past. The town was the kind of place you only found by accident. Off a rural highway, 2 gas stations, 1 diner, and a roadside repair shop with a crooked wooden sign that read Mac's Garage. Mac was 65, half-deaf, and too tired to micromanage. He took one look at Grayson when he walked in with grease under his nails and said, "You know carburetors?" Grayson nodded. That was the interview. Within a week, he was fixing bikes and old pickups like he'd been born under a hood. No one cared that he didn't talk much. Around here, silence wasn't suspicious. It was respected. Grayson lived in the small loft above the shop, a space barely big enough for a bed, a kettle, and a shelf filled with secondhand books he found at a roadside donation box. He read every night by a dim desk lamp, paperbacks with folded corners, pages that smelled like forgotten waiting rooms. Sometimes philosophy, sometimes spy thrillers. He preferred the ones where the hero vanished in chapter 1. 3 months in, Mac handed him the keys and grunted, "Thinking of retiring. You want this place?" Grayson looked up from the invoice he was filling out. "You're serious?" Mac lit a cigarette with fingers that trembled slightly. "You're the only one who's never wasted a minute or a word. You fix things quiet. That's rare. Place needs someone who won't let it rot." Grayson took the keys without ceremony. Just nodded. "Okay." There was a strange satisfaction in routine. Oil changes, brake pads, conversations that didn't demand smiles or small talk. The locals started to trust him, not because he tried to fit in, but because he didn't. People brought their machines, dropped off a six-pack, and left without expecting anything more than a working engine. His hands got stronger. His back sore in the right way. He didn't check social media, didn't Google her name, didn't need to. The silence was his firewall. One afternoon, a young man brought in a battered motorcycle and tried to impress him with forced bravado. "So what's your story, man? You look like a guy who used to own a house and a golden retriever before it all went sideways." Grayson chuckled once. Just once. Something like that. The kid nodded like he understood. But he didn't. Not really. That was the point. He rode out to the woods sometimes, parked on the overlook that faced a valley full of rusted sheds and tall grass, and just sat. No headphones. No calls. Just the wind. Every so often, Mac still dropped by with a bag of jerky or a half-warm coffee, sitting on a tire rim while Grayson tightened bolts in silence. "Ever gonna tell me your real name?" he asked once. Grayson wiped his hands on a rag. "You ever ask the coffee machine for its middle name?" Mac laughed until he coughed. Fair enough. By the end of the 5th month, business had doubled. Locals appreciated the precision. Some even stopped calling it Mac's Garage. They just said, "Go see Grayson." He didn't flinch when he heard his old name on the radio one day, some podcast rerun discussing viral breakups and public humiliation. A woman's voice laughed through the speaker. "He just stood there like a ghost." The host chuckled. "Wonder where he is now." Grayson turned the dial. Static returned. Better that way. He kept the old envelope, the one with Jenna's rooftop speech transcribed by hand. He'd rewritten it from memory one night. Every word, every line. Folded it, taped it under the desk drawer. Not out of nostalgia, out of discipline. A reminder that noise fades. But silence reshapes a man. He didn't want revenge. He didn't want her to suffer. He just wanted her to know. Some exits are final. And sometimes you don't have to slam the door. Sometimes you just make sure it never opens again. The sound of her own laugh started to haunt her. At first, the rooftop video had been her badge of honor. A bold, cheeky exit played for the cameras. People loved it. For a week, she soaked in praise from her little social bubble. That's how you do it. She's a savage. Queen behavior. But then something shifted. Podcast picked up the clip. One of those modern masculinity shows with a large, devoted following. They played it with no commentary for the first minute. Just the raw footage. Her spoon tapping the glass. The forced cheers. Her exaggerated, "He'll be better off." Eventually, the camera panned to Mark. Expression unreadable, almost serene. As he said, "Freedom looks good on you," then walked away. No begging. No shouting. Just poise. Then the host said, "Now that's how a man leaves." Thousands of new eyes found the clip. But this time, the applause didn't go to her. The narrative flipped. Comments exploded beneath the reposted video. "Damn. He ghosted them all. That's a tactical retreat if I've ever seen one. Where is he now? We need a documentary." She thought she won. He vanished like a pro. This guy's a legend. Pure discipline. And then came the theories. Threads unraveling her performance line by line. People slowed the video down, analyzing his expression, the timing, the way he didn't even glance at the cameras. They compared it to disappearing artists, spies, monks. There was something eerie about how still he had been. It started getting to Jenna. She stopped checking notifications, but they poured in anyway. DMs, tags, mentions. Her name became a punchline. Memes popped up. Her raising a glass with captions like, "Congrats on losing a real one." A TikTok remix looped Mark's line over dramatic music. The worst part? Her own friends turned. Emily, who had once yelled, "Freedom Toast!" across that rooftop, sent a text late one night. He knew, didn't he? Before the party. He set this up. Jenna stared at that message for 15 minutes before replying with a half-lie. No, he didn't know. He's just dramatic. But the doubt had already taken root. Another friend unfollowed her completely. A third sent a screenshot of a Reddit thread. Is it just me, or was the girlfriend in the video kinda smug? The replies were worse than the post. At work, she tried to fake normalcy. But her boss, a conservative type who preferred low-drama employees, quietly reassigned her. "We're moving you off the Mitchell account," he said, not looking her in the eye. "It's nothing personal. Just need someone with a more discreet online presence." Discreet. That word hit like a slap. Jenna had spent years building a personal brand around being unfiltered. Now that brand was poisoning her resume. She started Googling him. Not because she wanted him back. At least that's what she told herself. She just needed control. Needed to know. But there was nothing. No digital footprint. Not a tweet. Not a breadcrumb. Just silence. And the endless sea of strangers praising a man who had mastered the art of vanishing. She opened her fridge one night and saw the leftover cake from her birthday, still wrapped in foil. She'd forgotten it was there. It had gone stale. Much like the jokes, the applause, the moment she thought she'd won. Her eyes drifted to the envelope on the table, the one that still held his final message, now read so many times the paper was worn at the fold. "You made it public, so I made it permanent." Jenna tried to laugh, but it caught in her throat, brittle and dry. Because now the joke had no echo. Only her own voice left to hear it. It was past midnight when Jenna stumbled across it. She wasn't looking for him. At least that's what she told herself. She was clicking through a rabbit hole of podcasts, forums, and articles tied to the now viral breakup clip. Some influencer had used it as an intro to her TEDx talk on boundaries and performative freedom, whatever that meant. But buried beneath a comment thread about emotional disappearances was a strange link to a local auto blog. Best kept secret, Grayson Lee's roadside repair. She clicked out of boredom, expecting the usual small-town garage fluff, broken fan belts, happy customers. But halfway down the page was a photo. The man was bearded, leaner, with sun-darkened skin and oil stains on his hands. But the eyes, those were unmistakable. She froze. She enlarged the photo. Then again. Her finger hovered above the trackpad as her stomach flipped. He had changed, sure, but not completely. His posture was the same. Shoulders relaxed, spine straight, chin tucked in slightly. That wasn't a man hiding. That was a man who no longer needed to be seen. The name under the image, Grayson Lee owner. She whispered it aloud like it might shatter the illusion. The next morning, she called in sick and drove 5 hours out of the city with nothing but a thermos of coffee and questions she wasn't sure how to ask. The town barely registered on GPS Blink and you'd miss it. When she pulled onto the gravel road leading up to the garage, she parked across the street behind a billboard for deer feed and watched. There he was, laughing, actually laughing, with a customer over a dented fender. His sleeves were rolled to the elbow, arms covered in grease, but he moved like someone who hadn't carried weight in years, like someone who no longer looked over his shoulder. He turned to speak to a woman holding a toddler, smiled, waved to the child. The woman laughed at something he said. Jenna's heart drummed in her ears. She waited another 20 minutes, then got out, walked slowly toward the garage like the pavement might crack beneath her. She stepped through the open bay door, inhaling the heavy scent of oil and rust. He turned, wiped his hands on a red rag. His eyes met hers. No flinch, no double take, just a measured blink. "Mark?" she asked, her voice thinner than she meant it to be. He looked at her like she was another lost tourist asking for directions. "We don't do drama here," he said flatly, stepping past her toward a toolbox. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. "It's Grayson," he added without turning around. "Grayson Lee." She stood still, every question she'd rehearsed vaporizing in her throat. He finally looked back at her, expression unreadable. "Do you need your car fixed?" "No," she managed. I saw the article." He nodded like she'd just told him the weather. "Lot of people see things." Jenna took a step forward. "Why didn't you say anything?" Grayson, "No, Mark," tilted his head slightly. "Say what?" "That you did exactly what you wanted. And I chose not to watch. She flinched. He wiped his hands again and gestured to the open garage door. We're booked today. Customers are waiting. It wasn't anger. That's what threw her. There wasn't a hint of rage. Just efficiency. She stepped back, slowly, as if waking from a dream that ended too fast. Have a good drive back, he added, already turning away. She hesitated in the doorway. Mark. He didn't look at her. I told you, we don't do drama here. The words landed colder than any slap. Not because of cruelty, but because of indifference. She walked back to her car in silence, the gravel underfoot grinding like tiny echoes of something long dead. From across the street, she watched him bend under the hood of a truck and never glance her way again. It arrived on a Thursday, wrapped in plain brown paper. No return address, certified signature required. Jenna had just returned from another lifeless day at work, where her new assignments involved spreadsheets, not clients. Her inbox had grown colder by the week, her colleagues quieter. Even Emily, once the loudest hype girl in her corner, now avoided eye contact in the break room. The package sat on her kitchen counter like a dare. She stared at it for a while, debating whether to open it or toss it straight in the trash. But curiosity has sharp claws. She sliced through the paper with a kitchen knife and lifted the lid. Inside, nestled in black foam, was a frame. A glossy photo. The rooftop scene. Frozen in high definition. Jenna. Glass raised mid-toast. Eyes sparkling with fake freedom. Friends around her caught mid-laughter. It was the exact moment before everything changed. Before his quiet exit. Before the silence that devoured her world. She was center stage, smiling like she'd won something. Pinned to the back of the frame was a certificate. Donation receipt. Amount, $12,000. Recipient, Safe Steps Foundation. Supporting women escaping public domestic humiliation. Underneath was a short, typed note. No greeting. No signature. In honor of your performance. May it help someone else escape. Jenna sat down slowly. She hadn't planned to go. The flyer had been stuffed in her mailbox with a dozen other community healing events she normally tossed without a glance. But something about the words, breaking patterns. When leaving is the power move lingered. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe shame. Maybe just the exhaustion of pretending she wasn't unraveling one thread at a time. So she went. The parking lot buzzed with soft conversation. Keys jangling, doors slamming shut. People left the panel recharged, carrying tote bags filled with pamphlets and empowerment slogans printed on recycled cardstock. They talked about courage, rebirth, boundary setting. The kind of talk that drifts off after a day or two, once real life calls again. But Jenna stayed behind. By the stone wall near the rear exit, hands tucked into her coat sleeves, trying not to look like she was waiting. She didn't know why she thought he'd come, or if she even believed it was really him behind that blurred projection. Maybe it was stubborn hope, or the craving for closure she swore she didn't need. Or maybe, deep down, she wanted the story to finally be about her again. Then he appeared, not walking toward her, not even looking in her direction. He exited through the side door with a woman beside him, older, elegant in a lived-in way. They shared a quiet laugh, the kind that comes from time, not performance. He wore a worn denim jacket and boots that actually looked like they belonged to someone who worked with his hands. His beard was trimmed now, his hair shorter.